Welcome, everybody, to the Freelance Teacher Podcast videocast once again. I'd like to talk to you about what you're allowed to do and what you aren't allowed to do. And one of the people who's very good at distilling what I'm trying to say is Tom Woods, who talks about there's a 3x5 card of acceptable opinion. And if you stray off of that 3x5 card, you're bad, you're a loser, you're some kind of bad name, an ad hominem attack. They'll call you a racist or a homophobe or an Islamophobe or a genderphobe or a misogynist. The names, they seem to never stop. They come up with some pretty creative attack words if you stray off of the 3x5 card of acceptable opinion. And that concept I've stolen before in my previous writings and videos, that there's a 3x5 card, and I have to give credit to Tom Woods for that. But it's one of the things where once you realize that I'm talking about two things today, really. Once you realize that you are allowed to go off of the 3x5 card of acceptable opinion, it's very liberating. The second thing is there are people who you may like as philosophers or politicians or sports figures or teachers or parents, reverends, figures of authority of all kinds, and you may like them and agree with most of them or much of what they say, but you're allowed to disagree with certain things that they're talking about, right? And you see this in politics all the time. If you're on a team, the Republicans or the Democrats, you'll see people defend the indefensible. And they can't say, I want this person to win the election, or I want this team to win the World Series, yet this aspect of the team is terrible and I disagree with it and I wish they'd stop, right? For example, I identify, I guess you could say, to use a current phrase that's very popular, I identify as a libertarian, and I really should identify as an anarchist, but anarchy is a word that scares people because they think it means no rules. And what it means is no rulers, right? You don't need somebody ruling over you to tell you what to do, and if you don't do what they say, you go get put in a cage or get killed, right? That person to do that and oversee you as if you were cattle isn't necessary. Now, that's a radical idea, and Tom Woods and a few people are really good at that. Thaddeus Russell, who I'll bring up in a minute, is also very good at explaining that. But there are things with those people that I disagree, right? Tom Woods did a podcast, an extensive one, where he didn't have a guest. He just spoke as to why he's religious. He defended his religion and defended being religious, and it didn't get to me. Now, I'm not an atheist. I'm not, I'm not anti-religion. I actually happen to like reading about faiths and old religions. I like it more than much of that literature is the best literature you'll find. But his podcast as to why he's a Catholic, I thought his arguments were not very good, and the podcast was not nearly one of his more exciting ones, and I disagreed with it. I just wasn't buying into it. And this current phenomenon now, Thaddeus Russell was on, to bring up another point, Thaddeus Russell's book, Renegade History, what is it? The Renegade History of the United States. Very good. I've read multiple parts of it multiple times. I read the entire thing. I did a book review on it. I'm going to look into his Renegade University, although I have my own things going on, but I will definitely look. Right? This is somebody whose academic work I enjoy immensely, but he was on Joe Rogan's podcast, and he kept saying the postmodernist line about race and gender and biology, and his reasons were, I think his reasons were terrible. At the end of the argument, he had a few of them, but at the end of the argument, he said, we need to stop classifying these people as such, because people have always taken those classifications and done terrible things with them. That's not an argument that refutes gender or race, right? Even with gender, he asked Joe Rogan, well, have you met two females that are identical? That's not an argument, right? That's just wrong. Like, so what? We're not talking about are females identical. We're saying, are there females and are there males? And Thaddeus Russell's arguments as to are there females or males were terrible. They just were not, they didn't work, because there's a wide range of styles and types and sizes of males, therefore there are no males. No, that was a bad argument, and I think, from what I can tell, I haven't looked a lot, Russell has taken a lot of gotten a lot of blowback on Twitter. But again, somebody like Russell, that's good, right? He's somebody who will argue and debate and listen to other people, right? That's why the other podcast video explanations I've talked to you about, you have to find people like him, like Russell, like Rogan, like Woods, right, who will listen to other people and have unorthodox opinions thrown in their face. So my point is, as a young person, when you have allegiance to a side, or you have allegiance to a person, you don't have to be in lockstep with everything they say, right? Another quick example with Woods, Tom Woods talks often about how when he was a conservative in college, and when the Republican Party, as he was the chapter leader for the college Republicans at Columbia, which has got to be one of the smallest, least effective organizations in the history of the human race, he was applauding the military action in the Middle East. Why? Because the Republican Party said this is what we need to do, and if you're a good Republican conservative, you're on our side and you believe the same thing. And his thoughts evolved, and he realizes, of course, that that's ridiculous and it's not a conservative idea, and having government invade foreign countries is the antithesis of small government belief, right? So these are things that I want you to think about, and I'm putting this out there because I'm listening to the current Tom Woods, Thaddeus Russell, Michael Malice goes in this category as well. A group, these people are chattering a lot on the internet. It's really great. It's glorious to have all of these things out there and not have to listen to the same 3 opinions on the same 3 channels and follow the same lockstep belief of those same 3 people, right? The old debate of, well, you're either with the New York Times and their liberal opinion, or the Wall Street Journal and their so-called liberal opinion, right? Those days are over, and it's really wonderful. So open your mind, expand your scope, find people, men and women, right? Biological men and women who are open-minded and thoughtful and bring logic and reason, and demand that they get their intellectual muscles worked out, because they demand to hear other and try to hear other opinions. So join that group, join that crowd, and I think you'll have an intellectually fulfilling life. You'll be smarter, you'll be more erudite, you'll be a more worldly person, and you'll be able to, I think, have a more fulfilling existence. Thank you very much. This is The Freelance Teacher, thefreelanceteacher.com. Talk to you soon. Next podcast, videocast, going to be about our trip to Ecuador, which was wonderful. Talk to you next time.